Today in our 2007 Ford Super Duty, we'll be installing the B&W turnover ball underbed gooseneck trailer hitch, part number BWG NRK 1108. First, we'll show you how the gooseneck hitch works. First, we'll release the locking pin by pulling out and moving it to the side so it'll stay in the open position. We'll then take our gooseneck ball and drop it in place. At this point, you can release the locking pin and you're ready to tow your trailer. You can also flip the gooseneck ball upside down so it lays flat in the bed when you're not towing. However, if you have a heavy load in the back of your truck, you may still need to remove it so you won't hit the rear differential while traveling. This gooseneck trailer can also be used with the B&W fifth wheel companion hitch. Now let's show you how it installs. To start our installation, we went ahead and removed the rear tires and the spare tire. The first step to installing our hitch is going to be to remove the exhaust hangers and get the exhaust lowered and out of our way. Spray that down with a little lubricant just to help it pop off there easier. Now before we drop our exhaust, we're going to go ahead and support it with a strap. With the exhaust supported, we can use a pry bar and start removing our exhaust hangers. Now our hole needs to be drilled at 47 inches into the bed. So we're just going to measure from the back of the bed up to 47 inches. We'll make a mark at 47 inches. And then we'll want to find the center going from these two weld seams. Now the distance between the weld seams is 49 inches. So we're going to look for 24.5 and mark that over our 47 inch mark from before, and that'll give us our center. Now that we've got our location to drill marked, we'll start with a 1/4 inch bit and we'll drill a pilot hole. To cut the hole for our gooseneck hitch, we'll use a 4-inch hole saw. Now our next step is going to be to remove this heat shield here, and that will just grab a hold of it with some channel locks and pull down. Before we put the hitch into place, it's not a bad idea to spray some paint or some underbody coating where we drilled for the hitch itself, just to help protect against rust. Now we got the heat shield out of the way, we need to remove this exhaust bracket. It's just the one bolt holding it on right there. We're going to pull that off. But first we'll spray it down with some lubricant and rust penetrant. Then we'll back the bolt out. Now we're going to set this bracket to the side because we will use it later on. We'll just have to add an extension bracket to it. Now our next step here is going to be to modify this flange just a little bit so we can get our cross members in there. Now where we'll want to make our cut is about 1.5 inches in front of this hat channel. Here we're just going to use some tin snips to make our cut. Now with our cuts made, we'll just grab it with some channel locks, pry the metal out of place. We're ready to put our rear channel in here, and the rear piece is the one that's got the 3 cuts. We'll just angle it up and match it with our cut from earlier and slide it in place. Now it's time to install the front bar for our hitch. As you can see, we got the suspension mount right here. So we're going to take the bar like we did before, not just pointing in, and we're going to slide it to the back of that suspension mount. And this one should just slide right in place. Once it's across, we'll come up and over that mount. Now we're going to work with our side plates and clamp straps. First thing we'll do is take our clamp strap and we'll get that located into place. To do that, we'll just put it around the bottom of the frame and push it up into place. You'll notice that we have a notch for the edge of the frame and for our lines right there. We'll go ahead and take our side plate, slide that down across there, line this top hole up with the bolt on our clamp strap. Now with the hole's lined up and the bolt through that hole, go ahead and take our lock washer and the nut. We'll just kind of hand tighten it on there for now to hold everything in place and pull up some of the slack. We just want to hold the side bracket up a little bit here, just make sure we have those holes lined up. Once we do that, we'll take this bolt, feed it through our strap clamp and out the back side of the side bracket up there. We'll start with a lock washer, and we'll just hand tighten that down again with that nut. You know, so there's a gap. We'll get to that here in a little while. We'll draw that together once we tighten everything down. We're going to take this spacer here. We'll put that between the side plate and the frame. Now with the spacer in place, take this bolt and slide it through. Now there are wires on the back side of this. We'll have to move those out of the way. And then on the other side of the frame, we'll put another flat washer. Then our lock washer. And finally, the nut. We'll go ahead, just like the other ones, just hand tighten this one down. Now that we got the driver's side all into place, we'll move to the passenger side and repeat that same process. Now with all the brackets in place, we'll place the hitch up into the truck. It usually helps to have a second set of hands so we can put the hitch into place. Now we do want to note that the hitch release, the side with the spring, goes towards the driver's side of the vehicle. Now that we got our bracket pressed up against the hitch, we'll go ahead and insert our hardware. We'll use our flat washer and our bolt. That'll go in towards the hitch. And on the back side, we'll add a lock washer and a nut. And now we'll repeat that process for the front rail. We'll use the same hardware as we did inside the frame rails, but out here on the bracket and the side plate. And we'll repeat that process on the other side of the vehicle. With all of our bolts in place, we go ahead and tighten them down just a little, take up all the slack. Then once we finish that, we're going to make sure the hitch is square to the frame. Now that we got all our hardware in place, connecting the side plates to the rails, we need to measure from the back part of the rail to the hat channel on the frame, and then we'll take that measurement on the passenger side of the vehicle to make sure it's square before we tighten down our bolts holding the hitch to the frame itself. So over here, we're at about 6.5 inches. We'll go over the passenger side and check our measurement over there. And we're at 6.5 inches here as well, so we know that our hitch is square to the bed and to the frame. We go ahead and tighten down the rest of our hardware. With all of our bolts snugged up, we're going to go ahead and torque them. And after we finish tightening these center bolts, we'll move to this one, and then the bolt up to the top. The next step is to install the release handle for the hitch. To do that, we'll take the handle, feed it up through this opening here, and out through the frame of the truck. And we'll put our carriage bolt in place, and then this flange nut on the other side. Then with the nut in place, we can tighten it down. With the handle installed, we'll try it and see how it works. All right, now that we have the handle installed, we showed you the operation of that, we need to drill out these 4 holes. Those 4 holes will be used for our safety chain hoops. Now with this, we are going to drill from the bottom up, as I just showed you, because we can use this as a template. That way there's no guessing up top when dropping down the hardware. Now with our holes drilled, we got to get into the bed of the truck. We'll take our U-bolts and we'll drop them down through the holes. Now sometimes you might have little metal or just some debris on these holes, so it doesn't hurt that once you're up here, you go ahead and take the drill, just kind of route them out a little bit, make sure everything sits in there just nice. Now that we clean the holes up, the U-bolt just drops right into place. And here are our U-bolts that we dropped down from the top of the bed. We're going to put our hardware on there to secure them in place. The spring will go over the bolt, and then we'll put that nut on the U-bolt. It is a locking nut, so we want to make sure we only go 2 to 3 threads exposed on the bottom of it. Once that bolt is completed, we can move on to the other 3 posts. All right, there's the factory exhaust hanger. Now it's time to reuse this. But before we put it back up, we're going to bolt it to this new hanger, and that hanger is going to bolt into the factory location that this was in earlier. This will allow the exhaust to sit just a little bit lower and it avoid hitting the hitch. So to do that, take this detent, we'll line it up with that hole right there. Take the carriage bolt, feed it in from the back side, and we'll tighten it down with this flange nut. Now that it's tightened up to the original factory hardware, we can hang this back in place, and then we can start putting our exhaust back up. And slide it right up into place where the original hanger went. We will use our factory hardware that we removed earlier on for our new bracket. We also have another flange nut and carriage bolt to put in the slot where the detent pin came out earlier. There's the new nut from the new carriage bolt we put in on the other side. We'll tighten that one down as well. Now we're ready to go back and put our exhaust up. We'll loosen up this strap, take a little spray lubricant, spray it in the hanger, slide the exhaust hanger back into place. With this hanger in place, we'll go ahead and connect the rest of them. Now we'll reinstall the spare tire and the rear tires. And that's going to conclude today's installation of the B&W turnover ball underbed gooseneck trailer hitch, part number BWGNRK1108 on our 2007 Ford Super Duty.